Hello and welcome to your Sacred Starlight Astrology Forecast for September of 2022. My name is Rebekah and I'll be giving you all the details. I am grateful that I personally made it through August. There was a lot of progress in August, but it was one of the more growing pains, challenging months in terms of astrological configurations for the year. So September feels different and is a bit milder, I would say. The fall, we're going to have some more intensity and a lot of review and reintegration and a lot of slowing down and integration, sort of retrograde or backwards moving energy before we really launch forward into 2023 and some big shifts. But September, we're past August and we're before eclipse season and some more intense retrograde. So this is, a milder month. Let's just say that. And I'm looking forward to it. Just a brief announcement before I start with my opening prayer. You can find me always at sacredstarlight.com and on Instagram at sacred_starlight. But I've also decided on a bit of a whim to launch a Patreon. Some of you that are watching these forecasts know that I have in the past hosted a lot of meditation and energy healing events, guided journeys. I've been a little bit on a hiatus from that for a while. So those are going to be coming back. They won't be entirely behind a paywall on Patreon. I'll be doing some of them in person here in Los Angeles with some live streaming tickets. Not that many, but some. And then launching a Patreon on September 1st. And those will have full moon guided meditation journeys with energy healing and mysticism and all of the mathematical heady astrology as well, sort of blended. And so I'll be offering full moon journeys every month, as well as new moon magic coffee hour and sacred chit chat, and where we can kind of just share and relax and, ask questions, do community sharing. What else am I sharing? Early access to this forecast every month. So it'll be posted to the public on the 1st of every month, but patrons will get it earlier, at least 2 to 3 days earlier, if possible, more so. And I also have at some higher tiers, some one-on-ones, but the pricing for it is, there are 4 tiers that are basically all the same. It includes all the journeys and the meditation journeys, the full moon journeys, and the new moon magic coffee hour, the early access to the forecasts. There's digital downloads of stuff that, my past meditations, which have only been available via streaming, which you can have the digital downloaded files, and just anything else I have the bandwidth and space. It'll all be under this, the same 4 tiers. You're just going to choose the one that you can afford to pay. I don't want this to be something that is not accessible for people. And so I'm just trusting people to pay the one they can afford to easily pay. The first tier is $8, then it goes to $20, then $33 and $44, but they're all the same offering. So you just, hopefully if you want to join me in that space, you can sign up at patreon.com. So like I said, this is so spur of the moment for me. I just launched on there. I haven't told anyone. I don't even know if it's like /Sacred Starlight, but I'm sure if you search for me, Rebekah Muir, or search for Sacred Starlight, you can find me on there. And there are a select number of spots on certain higher tiers that have monthly one-on-ones as well. So, going into retrograde season, it seems a little strange to be launching that, but I do have Jupiter on my natal Mercury. So for my chart, at least that makes sense. Jupiter rules my house of publishing, spirituality, and teaching, and it's on my communications planet. So I'm just going to roll with it and see what happens. These are offerings that I really enjoyed doing in the past. Even if it's a small number of people that I see there, it's just going to be so wonderful to connect with people on a consistent basis and just, be in community together. So feel free to join me there. I would really appreciate your support. But either way, just thank you for being here. Okay. This is general weather for everybody, so please keep that in mind. This is the conditions, not the outcome. I want us to really remember to not collapse down into any sort of projections that something negative might happen, or confine ourselves to anything. I really believe the future is open. So don't allow anything that I say in this forecast, please, to limit you in any way at all. This is literally just some themes, some archetypes. This is definitely weather. It's currents that we're swimming in. And you can take whatever personal spiritual belief system you have, or philosophical belief system that you have, and just take this from there and use it however you would like to. For me, I see every alignment, even the challenging ones, and maybe especially the challenging ones, as part of a divine alignment. It's all sacred. Every sky is perfect. And so when we have the weather with these astrological forecasts, we can surf a bit, maybe. We have a little bit more self-awareness. We can maybe see the forest instead of just the trees, and potentially we'll have the opportunity to be a bit more strategic with our planning and our actions, bring mindfulness and grace into any challenging weather, and hopefully just move through it with the potential for a little more success. Okay. And if astrology seems like a lot, it is a lot. It's a lot of details. It's very easy to get lost. So let's ground ourselves with an opening prayer. Dear force of infinite love, infinite mercy and magic and wisdom and compassion and grace, force of infinite goodness and possibility and power and strength, be with us now, be with everyone now that's listening in on this forecast in every direction of time and space. I ask you to bless this forecast, get me out of the way so that I am a clean and clear channel for whatever is meant to come through. Guide my words, and just cloak us all and this whole world in grace, and help us to remember our own power to move through this world and in a creative way, and help us to remember your power as well. Great Spirit, great mystery, higher self, heart of God, Father, Mother, God, by any name anyone wants to call you. Help us to remember your power, to lean on you as well, as we are carried and we are all woven through this perfect divine configuration. Thank you so much. Bless this whole world. Bless this whole cosmos. Amen. Okay. Let's ground ourselves into Virgo season, because this is where we're starting. So, and I'm going to need to do a screen share. Thank you. We got the details. So, for anyone that was with me in the August forecast, we've covered this, but it's just very important. When we look at, there's a million things going on in the sky at any given time, but the sun is in Virgo right now. And that's what makes it Virgo season. Virgo is an earth sign. It's very grounded. It's also a mutable earth sign. So it is the only earth sign that is mutable, flexible. It's much more able to pivot. It's not as rigid or as rock solid, but still very grounded and very practical. So I'm going to just read these keywords because I feel like that is going to help us all. This is part of the palette we are swimming in and working with in this period of time. So through September 22nd, when we will shift into Libra season, we're still in Virgo season. So a positive way to work Virgo energy is to be grounded in the physical world, the mundane, which isn't insignificant whatsoever or anything less divine or less spiritual. I think God is in my cup of coffee. In fact, I know God is there. So grounded in the physical world, the mundane, getting things done, process, So not just expecting stuff to get instantly done, but being down for the process of whatever that's going to take. Production and harvesting, problem solving, writing, editing, publishing, communications, idealism or being idealistic, analytical, detail-oriented, self-discipline, skilled, observant, precision, meticulous, caring, helpful, service-oriented, altruistic, practicality, pragmatism, resourceful, I love that one, green thumb, sensible, functional and functionality, work ethic, humility, modesty, purity, materialization, productivity, health and healing, hygiene, well-being, fitness, beauty, skincare, daily routines and regimens, systems, order, organization, cleanliness, adaptability. That's that mutable element, right? So it's earth and it's grounded, but it's adaptable, it's mutable. Diligence, efficiency, low key and behind the scenes. So not needing the spotlight. It's a big shift out of Leo energy. Reserved, discerning, independence and sovereignty. And I also find just this random at the end, well-read. Virgo can be quite well-read. So those would be all sort of colors or words that we can draw from to work some of Virgo season's biggest magic. Some shadow Virgo, because every energy is neutral, right? So there's a healthy ways it can express, and then there's also a challenge. It's like a double-edged sword, right? So challenging ways that we may experience Virgo energy is being so caught into the details and wanting to do a good job that we just get sucked into perfectionism and can't enjoy any, like, we're just looking at the flaws so much that we can't enjoy anything. So perfectionism on an unhealthy level, being fussy or picky or nitpicking, overly critical, self-critical, anxious, imposter syndrome. So like feeling like you have to be so perfect that you never offer anything because you're worried that it's not going to be perfect or good enough. So then you don't get to share this magic with the world. Being restless, cold and detached, high maintenance, serious, prudish, a germaphobe, perhaps, a know-it-all, or being totally lost in the details. And this is not pointing a finger at any Virgos, but this is just where this energy can go sometimes if someone is out of a state of balance with it. So something to, I like to look at those because I like to pull my favorite ones, just pull my favorite ones and say, I'm going to kind of keep this in my awareness throughout this Virgo season and use this energy in this way. Some questions that we can ask ourselves in Virgo season. And I love asking questions rather than telling people what to do. That's why I like the keywords. And to begin this forecast, it may seem a bit long-winded, but it's like, I don't want to lock us down into this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Trust me, I'm going to get heady and into the details soon enough. But let's just remember how open everything is and just ask ourselves some of these questions that are Virgo themed. So the first question is, where is there magic in the mundane? More questions. I'm just going to read them off. What grounds me and connects me to the world? Am I dreaming or am I doing? What daily routine or regimen will support my goals? What daily routine or regimen will support my healing and specifically my health and well-being and even my beauty? What are 3 details in my life that, when tended to with diligence and love, will yield a bountiful harvest? How am I helping and serving others? Where can I invoke self-discipline? Where in my life can I create order? Where in my life can I allow myself to trust the process? And last but not least, What does sovereignty feel like in my body? And just to tie that in, Virgo being the virgin did not mean sexually chaste in the old days. And I wish I had researched. I like to cite my sources because I can be nitpicky like that too. I don't have a source to cite for you. But if you do even a Google on this, there's so much information that Virgo, virgin, had to do with a woman that was sovereign, that was not necessarily under the jurisdiction of a husband or a man per se, as far as I understand. So this is where that sovereignty element comes in. Virgo can be so independent. And of course, no one is an island, but just something to think about. Okay, so moving into this forecast, here we are. And this is an Aries rising chart, just because when I'm spinning this wheel and I'm animating the chart and moving the planets around, it's just going to make it way easier to look at. In any given location, the rising sign will change, constantly. So here we go. We are on September 1st. And before, because we are about to just go into the detail rabbit hole in terms of the specific aspects, just as an overview, things are starting to slow down. We are going to have a Mercury retrograde this month on September 9th. So Mercury, who rules Virgo, the planet Mercury is the ruler of Virgo season, will be retrograde for pretty much most of the month. And then by the time it goes direct, which is not until October 2nd, October already has Mars slowing down to go retrograde. So there's just, and right now we do have an extraordinary number of planets retrograde. In fact, the only planets that are not yet retrograde, Mercury is already being marked slow here as of September 1st. You can see that as I look down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So Venus is direct and Mars is direct, but Mars is going to be slowing down shortly and going backwards. Jupiter is retrograde, Saturn is retrograde, Neptune is retrograde, Pluto is retrograde, Uranus is retrograde. The sun and moon never go retrograde. So it's a lot of backwards moving energy. So just as an overall, before we get lost in details, knowing that in the fall, it doesn't mean we can't launch new things, but that there may be just a lot of stuff that we're completing and finishing up, or we may have to go back and review and integrate things before we can really move forward into a new era. Let's see. And Mars doesn't go retrograde very often. So we'll be talking about that. It's like the least often of any planet. We'll be talking about that more in October and November. But the story that's unfolding with that has already begun. We have a lot of planets on the mutable axis, which means that people with birthdays like Virgo, Gemini, Pisces, and Sagittarius are just having a lot more activation by the current transits than we've seen in a long time. It's been the people on the fixed axis that have been getting their butts kicked a bit more: Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, Taurus. And cardinal signs, just the mutable people have been like kind of not in the line of fire directly, like so much, but that's shifting as well. So when I say line of fire, it's not anything to fear, but it's just that at different points in the cycle, there are certain signs that really get activated for change and for moving forward. And so now, mutable folks, it is your turn. There's a lot happening on this mutable axis. And so things may heat up for you more so if you are a Virgo, a Pisces, Gemini, or a Sagittarius through the entire fall, but specifically like starting the last couple weeks of August, and then like since August 20th when Mars moved into Gemini, a mutable sign, and then now through September we'll be really seeing that because Virgo is a mutable sign. So we not only do we have Mars there, we have the sun there. We're going to have Mercury retrograding back into Virgo, a mutable sign. Venus will be moving through there. Neptune has been there since forever, but there's just a lot of planets suddenly on the mutable scene, right? That's what's happening. And so any planet that moves through Virgo has to come into an uncomfortable aspect with Mars and an uncomfortable aspect with Neptune. And uncomfortable is not necessarily bad, it's just uncomfortable. Usually, we don't see a lot of progress or change in our lives unless we are uncomfortable and become motivated to make those changes. So, it's always generally pretty good news, even if it's not the most comfortable, but just I really wanted to kind of point that out because it's a really significant shift from where we've been. The last, like I said, August was all fixed axis discomfort. And so fixed axis people, Aquarius, Leo, people with planets or significant placements in Aquarius or Leo or Scorpio or Taurus, August may have been particularly difficult. And there may be some relief now, unless you also have a lot of planets on the mutable axis. So, we have a grand trine in Earth, which is nice. Grand trines are when we have planets in every single Earth sign. So we have the sun and other planets will be moving into Virgo. We have Uranus in the North Node in Taurus, another Earth sign, and we have Pluto in Capricorn. So even though, like I said, there's a lot of backwards moving energy, things are starting to, it's really going to peak later in the fall, but we are having this Mercury retrograde this month. There's still a lot of kind of grounded, like we may be able to progress by reviewing and integrating in some really concrete and inspired and empowered ways. This grand trine in Earth is very much to do with like what is able to manifest in the world. So that's nice. And we also have a grand trine in air because we have Mars in Gemini, an air sign, Saturn in Aquarius, an air sign, and we have currently Mercury in Libra, which is an air sign, and we'll also have Venus moving into Libra, an air sign. So it's like this trifecta of planets and all these air signs are working well together. And air is very much about the intellect and ideas. It's very light. And so even though Mercury is going to be retrograde, like I said, we want to be mindful. We are probably going to get have to check ourselves a little bit if we're trying to just spin off into the sunset and, but there's a lot of mental stimulation and ideas and speech and communications that can really be quite active this month and worked through. The thing with this month and through the fall is that even with all this retrograde energy, it's actually such important progress and growth, even though it may not feel like it. It's like you have to untangle certain knots or, like I said, integrate things. Yes. Okay, great. So, and the times are in all Pacific. So, because we are in LA right now. Let's start. Thursday, September 1st. The first thing that we have going on here, and we have a moon starting off in Scorpio, which is a little heavier, but certainly not as much so as, the last month. I think, if you watched my last forecast saying every time the moon moves into Scorpio, it's really gnarly. Well, you'll still have some edges, but it's certainly not so much, not so edgy, not so harsh this month. So the moon in Scorpio, we're kicking off the month here, but we have a Mars sextiling Jupiter. So Mars is in Gemini, which is an air sign, and it's very active. It's very mentally stimulating, very communicative, generally all over the place and doing a lot of things, very zippy. The planet of war and leadership and like the charge is in that sign. It entered on August 20th. And so that is making a sextile to Jupiter in Aries. And Jupiter is retrograde. I think we are going to have this, I don't know if we're going to have this aspect a few times, but Mars typically belongs in the sign of Aries, so it's like received by Jupiter. So not only is it a harmonious aspect of a sextile, but there's a little extra, the reception there by Jupiter and its into Mars's home sign of Aries kind of makes it get along even more nicely. So for me, this is an aspect of inspiration and productivity. It's kind of juiced. Sextiles, a lot of astrologers like to say that they're minor aspects, but well, not necessarily, they're not that strong. They do stabilize things. They offer some very nice support. So this is nice here, kicking off the start of the month. There could, it's fire and air. It's inspired. it can be productive. And some sparks can fly, some things can pop, especially in your Aries and Gemini houses. Okay, so yeah, this moon in Scorpio is here. In the evening is when you're getting a little bit more of that chafing from the moon in Scorpio, squaring Uranus at around 8:06 p.m. Pacific time. It's actually opposing Uranus, my bad. And then squaring Saturn, who is, both these planets are retrograde. Uranus and Saturn are retrograde. It's going to square Saturn at 11:02 p.m. Pacific. So it's a little bit more tense as an evening. And then we're going into the weekend, Friday, September 2nd. The moon enters Sagittarius at 3:39 p.m. And so every time in my forecast last month, I was like, oh, this moon in Sag is so much lighter. It is, but it's Sagittarius is a mutable sign. So now the mutable axis has a little bit more heat and some testiness. So it's mixed. It's the first quarter square. We have the sun in Virgo and the moon in Sag. So, there's usually some sort of tweaking or potential like discomfort, not necessarily bad. Sagittarius is very fun loving and expansive and like, let's have a good time and explore and be open. But there may be some details that get fussy or that you need to tweak. We tweak from what the seeds we planted on the new moon. So yeah, the moon in mutable signs has a bit more to contend with than previous months. But this Sag moon is supported by Jupiter, who's retrograde in Aries this weekend, especially tomorrow, Saturday. So yeah, we'll have the moon in this kind of bright, happy, fiery sign of Sagittarius, and it's going to trine Jupiter, which is really nice, but it's going to oppose Mars. So you could be like really excited and very expressive or kind of fiery about something, but it's a lot easier there could be like some kind of stinging, especially with like verbal stuff at some point. Let's see, did I write down the exact time that's going to happen? I didn't. Anyhow, moon in Sag is pretty nice for a weekend, but just, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Mercury is also opposing, so Mercury in Libra is opposing Jupiter, who is retrograde at 6 minutes and 40 seconds, or 6 degrees and 40 minutes of Libra Aries. And that happens at 6:49 p.m. on Friday, September 2nd. So this is an aspect we are going to have 3 times because Mercury is going to go backwards. And so it's going to oppose Jupiter again. And then when it goes forward, it will oppose Jupiter again. So this is kind of like the beginning of some sort of unfolding of a story here. So Mercury, the planet of communication, and Libra, the sign of manners and relationship and harmony, opposing Jupiter, who is a benefic and likes everything to be nice, but in fiery Aries, there could be some sort of me-we balance that needs to be struck here. It could be easier to like speak your mind and then, have to kind of balance or bring some diplomacy to that after you've spoken your mind, or maybe somebody speaks their mind to you, and there's something that needs to be balanced here. An opposition is a hard aspect, but Jupiter is a benefic or quote unquote good, easier planet. So we'll see what happens here. And it could be like, the beginning of this story. And then the next couple times we have this aspect, it kind of unfolds. There's also a potential for mercurial things, which are communication or like buzzing around, zipping around, to just be overblown. Like you're just trying to do a lot of stuff, especially because Mercury is trine Mars here, that Mars is like gasoline or stepping on the gas, it wants to kind of really push things forward. So actually it's really funny. So Mercury is in this trine. Mercury in Libra is slowing down to go retrograde, and it's trine Mars, but it never perfects that trine because it's going to slow down over the next couple of days and stop. But it's so close right now. So there may be something that we're like trying to get done. And maybe we're expending a lot of energy or like putting a lot of effort into it, and it's like almost, but it's like you're wobbling, you're like a little bit, stepping on the gas and getting a little out of control. It's not terribly negative. but it's easy to overdo or overextend or be out of balance, especially in communication. So it's also fairly easy to recover. So just, yeah, striving for balance. This also has to do with any sort of like moving around with travel or trade, because Mercury does have to do with technology, but it also has to do with like commerce. That's where the word commerce comes from, is Mercury, right? So yeah, just something to note. Saturday, September 3rd, Mars is officially marked as moving slow on this day, and it will not station to go retrograde until October 30th. And it's only September 3rd. So it's a really long period where, you know, Mars moved into the sign of Gemini, which is very communicative and very mental and stimulated. It moved in on August 20th, and it will be there, I think, until March 25th or some crazy thing like that. It's like 7 months and 5 days. I can't remember what I said in my last forecast, but it's a really long time. And so before it stations retrograde, it's just slowing down, slowing down, slowing down. So that's why, you know, even though the retrograde is only for about 2 months, it just takes so long to slow down to go retrograde before that retrograde happens. And then after it goes direct, it takes so long to pick back up the speed that it had, that's why it's just going to be in Gemini for a really long time.
Sunday, September 4th.
Venus enters Virgo. We just need to skip it forward. What time does that happen? At 9:05 Pacific. Yeah, so 9:05 p.m. Pacific. And so that's September 5th, just after midnight for East Coast folks. So Venus in Virgo. Now we have 2 planets in Virgo. And Venus, it's interesting. She has mixed dignity here. And dignity just refers to how comfortable is she? How powerful is she in any given place? How well resourced is she to do what she wants to do? Venusian things, loving things, harmonious things, beautiful things, things to do with relating and love and abundance and just everything nice in life, all the good stuff in life. Venus is said to be in fall here, which is the opposite of dignity. She does very well in Pisces, which is actually some of the same significations as I just mentioned with Neptune. Pisces is the higher realms. It's spirit, it's love, it's oneness, it's God, it's music, it's art, because it's so soft. It's like here Venus can really connect and love and be open. And this is when we had Venus in Pisces through the spring. So she doesn't nitpick so much here. She's soft. She can let things slide. She can let things go. In Venus in Virgo is so detail oriented that she literally misses nothing. And, you know, she could be quite romantic, but she may have everything planned of how she wants it to be. And so if things don't go according to plan, or they don't, you know, you can't tick every single box on your list of things you want in your desired partner, like, you know, if she gets a little overcritical, it can be a little tougher here. That said, it's so interesting because Venus also has some dignity here that is, you know, by triplicity. So she does have dignity in the element of earth, just in and of itself. She can bring beauty in and be in the earthly realm. And then through the middle degrees, I don't work with decanic dignity. There are other sort of subdivision yet. One of these days I'll get to it. It's on my list. Check out like the Astrology podcast or Austin Coppock for those things. But there is a section of Virgo where Venus gets like an additional layer of dignity through the decans. So she is fairly well resourced here. It's not just that she's, you know, not just in fall. She can do really well here. Just, it's a little bit, like I said, mixed. So you just want to be mindful of being too picky to, you know, you don't want to let perfectionism get in the way of love or abundance or success or anything, right? She doesn't like to get to, you know, you don't want to be you got to be a little bit messy. Okay. Venus in Virgo can bring beauty to the details, beauty to productivity, beauty to service, And beauty regimens may like get a boost here too. So one of my things I laugh about with Virgo is skincare. But I'm like, that really gets amped up when you have Venus and Virgo. Service also, because Virgo has a lot to do with being of service. It's a work-based sign, but it's very humble and it's very behind the scenes. And so that is very beautiful. That is like true altruism. And what is more loving than that? And Venus being the planet that does have love significations, that makes sense. So service is very beautiful. Venus, in any regard, is going to bring blessings to the Virgo sector of your chart. She's a benefic planet. Everywhere she goes, she brings grace and beauty and goodness and love and things like that. So if you have any Virgo planets, when she comes through Virgo, she's going to be a really positive, helpful influence. And also, happy birthday, Virgos. Yeah. So this just says, nobody nitpick too hard because no one is perfect, right? Thursday, September 8th is a potentially edgier or more intense day. So get your favorite treats lined up or your favorite people lined up and just resource yourself as best you can. So Mercury is now officially stationing to go retrograde tomorrow on the 9th, but we are really feeling things already now. When a planet stations, it's like, and it has to slow down to stop, it's just not moving. It's bearing down with a lot of intensity on one particular degree of the zodiac. So this is 8 degrees of Libra. So that's pretty intense. Ooh, that's on my natal Mars. Good to know. Okay. So be extra respectful and thorough in your communications. Back up your files. Not an amazing day to book a trip or take one, but if you have to do that or you have to sign a contract or do something like that, like, don't worry. Just leave yourself as much room as you can to tweak later as possible. It's possible things could unfold differently than what you expect under these types of aspects. It's not like a terribly negative, we're in a sign-based trine from Saturn, sign-based trine to Mars. Like it's not terrible, but it is just a Mercury station in Libra. And especially for people that have planets at around 8 degrees of Libra or the cardinal signs, you want to just bring extra grace and mindfulness to all of your mercurial endeavors, be it communications, travel, technology, and trade. Great. Okay. The moon in Aquarius is squaring Uranus also like really early in the morning this day, 3:26 a.m., and conjoining Saturn early in the morning, 5:34 a.m. West Coast time. So this day could be potentially just a bit heavier, a bit more serious, a bit more volatile, potentially feel a little stifling or oppressive or just dry. Maybe you have a bunch of work you have to do and you're like frustrated if things are kind of not panning out exactly the way that you would like for them to. Just be patient. This is a divine cycle. Every planet is in the place that it's in on purpose. That's what I think anyway. Nothing is random. So just know that, this is part of our process of, we're doing stuff, we're being done, and we're going to be okay. Nothing ever stays the same. We're moving through it. Okay, East Coast folks may feel this a little bit more because it's like at the beginning of your workday. So just invoke your best qualities. And we are also on the build up in general to the full moon, which is happening on Saturday. So energy is just intensifying. This Mercury stationing and the moon and the Saturn ruled signs kind of having some challenging aspects from other planets. Get your favorite treats and your favorite people. All right. So Friday, September 9th, the moon enters soft and dreamy Pisces really early in the morning, 12:42 a.m. Pacific. She's beginning her full moon phase. And because the full moon is in the wee hours of the morning on Saturday, actually, we're feeling it most intensely on Friday on the buildup, right? That's what I wanted to say earlier as well. So Friday feels like a full moon. because it's so early in the morning. The moon also squares Mars at 4:08 p.m. on Friday, September 9th. So this is a little bit of a beasting kind of energy, but it's so quick. And because of the mutable nature of the signs, like Pisces is a mutable water sign, Gemini is a mutable air sign, people in situations can often be kind of flexible and like bounce back quickly. They're not like holding grudges. It's easier to come up with creative solutions, grace, forgiveness, and softness. So there's just not as much rigidity. But I did want to point out that 4:08 p.m., that moon square Mars, because that can be a little, kind of thing, zippity zap. So, skippity pap. There was like a video that my fiance showed me about this. Anyway, so Friday, September 9th, Mercury stations retrograde at 8:55 Libra, 8 degrees and 55 minutes of Libra at 8:38 p.m. Pacific time. And Mercury is retrograde until October 2nd. Mercury rules communications, speaking and thinking and writing, learning and mental processes, processing information and data, making connections, connecting to points of information, and moving around, commerce, trade, technology, definitely gizmos and gadgets, travel and vehicles. So with Mercury moving backwards, which Mercury doesn't really move backwards, but from our vantage point on Earth, it appears to be moving backwards. And this is how astrology works, is that we experience it that way because of our perception. It's time to review whatever is in that, first 8 degrees or 8 or 9 degrees of Libra in your chart, and we'll also be moving back into your Virgo house. So whatever house Libra rules for you, this is where some of this Mercury retrograde activity, and then your Virgo house is going to be, you're going to want to do all these review, redo, retrieve, renew, or release, and you'll know what to do. Whatever comes back, you have an opportunity to decide if you want to bring it forward with you, or if you want to have some closure and be done with it during this period of time. And it's a wonderful time and very productive to revisit old projects or anything left like halfway done that you always intended to finish. It's not an amazing time to start important new ventures. However, sometimes you have to, and don't worry, Mercury retrogrades happen 3 to 4 times a year, so they're not apocalyptic, and it really depends on your own individual birth chart and your own individual transits, whether or not it's a bigger year for you for Mercury retrograde. So just don't put too much fear on it, but just know, because knowledge is power. Miscommunications are easier to happen during Mercury retrogrades. It's easier to say something and have it be misunderstood, or to just screw up details. Also with Mars being in Gemini, which is the other Mercury ruled sign, that Gemini is words, Mars is war. There can just be like more like verbal conflict. It's so interesting hearing some of the other astrologers talk to you about like things like computer hacking and just like, like systems and technology, which is also very Gemini, and with Mars being kind of like the warrior in there, but this Mercury retrograde begins with a trine, a harmonious aspect to Mars. So that's at least pretty nice. Yeah. So this is a good time to just pause and see what's going to pop up and breathe. And if there's any tangles that present themselves, we just breathe and start to untangle them. And you can always ask for help from friends, or from the universe. And I say that to remind myself as much as anything. This Mercury retrograde in Libra is ruled by Venus in Virgo. And as we discussed, she's still fairly well resourced, because even though she's in fall, she has dignity by triplicity. This is also interesting because they're in a mutual reception, Venus and Virgo and Mercury and Libra. So Mercury in Libra is in Venus's domicile, and Venus in Virgo is in Mercury's domicile. And so even though they're not in their home signs, they actually are able to kind of help each other out. And the way this is classically taught, in astrology schools and such, is that it's kind of like being over at your best friend's house and having them be over at your house. So you might not be in your own house, but you're not in a stranger's house. Chances are your best friend, you could be like a little bit more comfortable and have some resourcing. So there is support for this retrograde. And this is, until Mercury moves out of Libra. So let's see. Venus doesn't leave Virgo until after Mercury has ingressed back into its domicile sign of Virgo, where it is empowered and well-resourced again. So this could still be a very productive Mercury retrograde. A lot of Virgo energy. So long as we are patient and willing to do the re's. Also, just to say, this Friday, September 9th, we are building on the build up to this full moon. So, the moon is in Pisces. She hasn't totally become full yet, but when she does reach her full peak, it'll be so early in the morning that by the time you get to Saturday, she'll already be on the come down. Now, it's still going to be full moon vibes, but Friday is definitely the day that we may be feeling it the most intensely, or Friday night. So Saturday, September 10th, we do have a full moon in Pisces at 17 degrees and 41 minutes at 2:59 a.m. Pacific. And this full moon is ruled by Jupiter, who's retrograde in Aries. And Jupiter in Aries has triplicity dignity, like Jupiter has dignity in the fire signs, but it's retrograde and it's not in its own domicile or exalted. It's not like really... it's not particularly notable, maybe. So this full moon is much more activating the mutable axis. Again, Pisces, the moon in Pisces, full opposite the sun in Virgo, Venus in Virgo. This moon is also square to Mars. Let me get this moon exactly. 2:50 whatever a.m., 2:59 a.m. Yeah, so at 17 degrees, we're in like a pretty solid square with Mars, which is uncomfortable, right? There could be like, just an effort to try to do something that's like a little bit nebulous or like won't happen. This could be a more emotional full moon as well, because the moon is in Pisces, which is very soft and watery and feels all the things. And yeah, opposite to the sun in Virgo, there's full moons illuminate things. You can see things more clearly, you can feel things more clearly, and we tend to feel our feelings more during a full moon. Just in general, there's an innate polarization because you have the sun in Virgo, which wants to ground in the details, but the moon, and that's like the mind, the sun, the mind, the consciousness in Virgo, and Venus there too, wanting to ground in details. We got Mercury's retrograde. And then the moon, which is just more our physical body, our instincts, like our lizard brain, our emotions, in this sort of watery, receptive, spongy, like feeling emotional sign of Pisces. And so it's really can be tough to integrate that. Sometimes it's like the Virgo stuff wants to control, and the Pisces stuff is like what's beyond control. The Virgo stuff is what's rooted in the world, and the Pisces stuff is really what's beyond all of that. And so you'll be really feeling in your Pisces sector of your chart some sort of culmination or potentially illumination or release, because this is a full phase. And then after this, the moon begins to wane and get smaller and release. So it's really to do with culminations, but it is square Mars. And so, there could just be some sort of disconnect or something out of alignment with regards to the Gemini sector of your chart and the Pisces and Virgo sectors of your chart. Could be just a little edgy or tense or stinging. We'll see. Hopefully not. But again, this mutable energy recovers really well. It's not rigid. So it's very forgiving and it's very adaptable, and it can bounce back. This is an extremely sensitive time, but it's great. There's the ability to transcend. And that's one of the keywords for Pisces is transmutation and transcendence. So it's also like a fine time for escapism too. Just wanting to be like, oh my God, I'm trying to do so much in the world and there's so much going on. Like, how can I just get away from all that and just go bliss out in the tub? That could be like a really, really great thing to do as well, or be by the water, be by the ocean. Yeah. This moon is tightly conjunct. Well, not that tight, I guess, but it's not tightly conjunct. It's conjunct Neptune, though, which again gives it even more of a dreamy, otherworldly quality that takes you out of the world and into the beyond. And it's a sextile Pluto, which can be just a little support with empowerment, and sextile Uranus. So it has some nice, it could be inspired, empowered, and dreamy. It could also just be a little bit heated. It could be steamy too. So it's a great time to rest and integrate and to dream and pause. Because remember, Mercury is still just stationed retrograde. And so Mercury is not even moving backwards yet. It's like just not moving. So yeah, just be with, we can be with ourselves and just feel the feelings and breathe and know that the tides are shifting and turning and everything's going to be cool. It's a wonderful time for art and meditation, not as much of a great time for detail-oriented endeavors and contracts and things that you need to see really clearly in the material world, because we probably aren't seeing really clearly in the material world, despite Virgo season, like all of those keywords that we went over in the beginning of this forecast. This is one of those times with the Mercury station and the full moon in Virgo that we're just going to have some pushback on that. We might be trying to control everything and we're just not going to be able to. You can't control it all. So this is one of those keywords for Pisces is surrender. This might be like a really good time for that. Okay. September 11th, which is a Sunday, the moon enters Aries at 2:47 a.m. We have the sun trining Uranus, who's retrograde, at 6:09 a.m. Pacific, at 18 degrees and 48 minutes of Virgo Taurus. So here's the sun in Virgo, 18, and then Uranus and the North Node really is there as well. So this could be a practical and unexpected, like positive breakthrough or spark of genius or inspiration. Could be to do with anything Virgoan, like your health or communications. Even though Mercury is retrograde, there still just could be like some kind of idea or something that you have that comes out of nowhere that could be really cool. Whatever houses that Virgo and Taurus rule in your chart, they're very earthy, they're very grounded, and it's just a nice little like zip zap of something good, inspiration, like potentially progress or like a stroke of genius or a good idea. It's a great day for inspired writing, despite Mercury being retrograde, especially if you're doing, reviewing old projects or like kind of combing through old stuff, right? There could be something cool happens there. The other really cool aspect that we have today is Moon conjoining Jupiter, which is just like Jupiter is the planet of grace and blessings and good things. So that's at 9:31 a.m. and it's lucky, fortunate, and blessed. And it could be like the energizing, like the assistance that you need. Friday, September 16th, we have Venus square Mars at 14 degrees and 22 minutes on the Virgo Gemini. It's not an axis, but Virgo and Gemini at 11:49 a.m. So this can be kind of tense. It's like a sexy tension. It's a quick transit because both planets move pretty quickly. Mars is kind of going slow, but Venus is still moving fast. So yeah, just some sexy tension in your Virgo and Gemini houses. It's a little heat. And for anybody with Gemini placements too, just to say this really simply, Mars in Gemini brings the heat to your Gemini house. So Venus and Mars get along really well as planets. Actually, it's like, I think traditionally, at least in Hellenistic astrology, Venus is like Mars's only friend. And Venus is a lover, not a fighter, even though Mars is a fighter. So like any sort of tension can be worked out, I would say, but this is just interesting to watch. Yeah. Okay, things can be worked out. It is sensitive though, because the moon does conjoin Mars though, like at 5:52 p.m. So the moon really feels a lot of stuff. We have the moon on Mars here. Yeah, this is like definitely someone might say something that might hurt your feelings or like, but it's all good. It's going to work out. You can work it out. Like I said, these Gemini placements, I keep saying it, they are not rigid. They have a lot of adaptability and bounce back. So I love that. It can be tougher to pin down, but that is one of their superpowers. The same day, Friday, September 16th, we have the sun opposing Neptune at 24:01 Virgo Pisces, and that's at 3:21 p.m. So there's an additional layer here on Friday of some fogginess where we can't totally see everything fully clearly. Like there may be some of this moon over Mars or this Venus square Mars, whatever is happening here. This is all on the mutable axis again. So mutable people, people with Virgo, Pisces, Sag, and Gemini placements are going to be feeling this even more so. There could just be some kind of confusion or fogginess or miscommunications and lack of clarity, and maybe people say something about it and it's a little spicy for a minute, but we get over it. But yeah, it's a fast transit. Just be mindful of confusion. It's easy to lose your direction or just like space out or think you know something but not know it. Like it's easy for that kind of happen today on Friday, September 16th. Saturday, September 17th, we have Mars sextile Chiron at 15 degrees exactly, Gemini Aries. And that is just an aspect that's kind of supportive of healing and working through wounds, like whether those are physical or emotional or mental or psychological. It can be a bit sensitive, but it's a very supportive aspect. So this is the last quarter moon, which is between the full moon and the new moon. So the moon is in Gemini today. It's already come over Mars. It's trining Saturn in Aquarius, which is a stabilizing aspect, but it's squaring Neptune in Pisces, which is a foggy aspect. So, and squaring the sun in Virgo. So this moon in Gemini, especially with Mars there, may be trying to get a lot of things done. And it may just be struggling to see clearly or to like handle all the stuff or do all the things. It could just be trying to do too much. And with that last quarter moon energy, and need to tweak and adjust and like reassess and be like, okay, let's take stock of everything. This is a good time to take stock of stuff at the end of the week here. And be like, all right, this works, this isn't working, I'm overloaded here, I got too much going on here, what's going to work? And how can we move forward in a way that makes the most sense? And just simplify it, because it's easy to get overwhelmed with Gemini energy. Gemini energy can really just be all over the place. And yeah, like it's just a superpower, but it likes to do a lot of stuff. And it has a lot of mental energy. So, and with that, all these planets in Virgo, just like wanting to have everything be so perfect, it can just be like, I'm struggling. So there's always going to be certain things we cannot control. And so just like one of those aspects where we're just doing our best. It's like that serenity prayer, Lord, give me the, help me, I don't know what the prayer is, but it's like, help me to take care of the things I can take care of and to like know what it is that I'm not going to be able to control. And then also give me the wisdom to know the difference. Perfect. So Sunday, September 18th. So here's where we get our second pass of Mercury retrograde opposing Jupiter. So this could be where things get a little confused. Mercury is retrograde in Libra and is opposing Jupiter at 4 degrees and 52 minutes in Aries. So there's something a little bit out of balance that we're trying to balance, and it could be around communications and relationships. The sun is also trine Pluto today. basically. That's at 2613. So at 8:58 p.m. at 26 degrees and 13 minutes of Virgo Capricorn, the sun trines Pluto. And that's kind of a nice aspect for empowerment. So overall, I would say Sunday, September 18th is a really nice day. It looks like this Mercury Jupiter aspect isn't too crazy. Again, like it's just Mercury is retrograde, but Jupiter is a benefic. Like there's so many other supportive aspects. This is like us figuring out what we want to do, how to move forward, you know, in an empowering way. And we're just finding our balance. There's a lot of sensitive, dreamy, and practical energy in the mix today in a nice way that flows. Tuesday, September 20th. Moon is still in Cancer, and she opposes Pluto at 8:58 a.m. Eastern. Now, I know I'm saying all these times in Pacific, but most of us are going to be asleep on the West Coast. But for you East Coast people, if you are in New York or Boston or wherever, if you're in Nova Scotia, as some of my people are, that's like, you know, right around when you're starting your work day or a little after. That's a sensitive aspect that can challenge people and make them feel a little bit out of their power, or like, especially with authority figures. And it's just sensitive, but it's very quick. So just a brief tense moment about sensitivity and power needing to be balanced. The moon is well supported to move through this with grace. Later this day, like tonight, Tuesday, September 20th, Venus is trining Uranus, which is at 9:44 p.m. That's Pacific. And then like it's actually early at 12:44 a.m. on the Wednesday in East Coast time zone. So Venus trine Uranus, that's at 18 degrees and 39 minutes of Virgo Taurus. And Uranus is that lightning bolt, unexpected, out of nowhere kind of energy and inspiration. And it's in a really nice supportive aspect like this with Venus, who is the lover, and she's in the sign of service, and she wants to help, and she wants everything to be perfect and beautiful. This can be very creative and innovative in beauty and money, as well as technology and relationships. It can kind of liven things up, but expect the unexpected, but it's nice. Like it's nice unexpected. And later on this evening too, we have the moon in Leo trining Jupiter at 10:32 p.m. So Tuesday night is kind of nice. Especially for this Venus trine Uranus, that's in your Virgo Taurus houses, whatever that looks like for you. There could be like just a nice little like pop or zap of something moving forward that's like a nice development that comes, or an inspiration specifically. Thursday, September 22nd. This is a big day, but this day is the day that fall begins. So the sun ingresses into Libra, and it becomes Libra season and the start of autumn. And that happens at 5:04 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday, September 22nd. So this is a tone shift, and Libra season is ruled by Venus, who is still in Virgo. So let's ground ourselves into Libra season, and we'll look at some of these Libra keys. And so the sun will be here in Libra until October 22nd. And so Libra energy as well is a neutral energy. And you can have nice manifestations of it. And there's even some shadow manifestations of Libra energy, even though it's ruled by Venus. And you're like, well, what could be so negative about that? It's not negative, but we just, we have to stay in balance. And actually Libra is about balance. So some of the positive manifestations of Libra energy are harmony and relationship, balance, relating, partnership, being a lover, diplomacy, fairness, justice, grace, gracefulness, charisma and being charismatic, respectful and reciprocity, togetherness, nice things, art, artists, art lover, patronage, beauty, aesthetic, style and fashion, elegance, loveliness, fine taste, idealism, creativity, social grace, socialness, like being sociable in general, fitting in, manners. This is a big one, I feel like, for Libras. Politeness, being nice, cordiality, thoughtfulness, tact, consideration, cooperation, peacekeeping, peace seeking, compromising, tolerant, even keeled. So Libra being ruled by Venus, Libra is a cardinal air sign. So it does still like to take action. It's the initiating of new things. It's the initiating of fall. It starts fall. And as an air sign, air rules the mind and the intellect. It's quite intellectual. It's like the other Venus ruled sign is Taurus, which is very earthy and embodied. Venus in Libra is much more active and much more social and much more communicative and much more verbal. And much more focused on beauty in a different way, maybe fashion and aesthetic and style. Certainly much more social and more about connecting with people, sharing ideas, appreciating art, making art, being creative. So, and relationships are just very, very significant. It's about the we, not just about the me. During Libra season, that's really highlighted, whatever house in your chart Libra rules. So for me, it actually is my relationship sector of my chart, but for you, it could even be your money house is governed by this energy. Libra shadow, let's talk about that. So some of the ways that Libra energy can manifest if it's out of balance: codependency, being codependent, being indecisive. Oh my God, I have so many planets in Libra in my chart. It's so hard for me to make decisions sometimes. It's just crazy. So that's a really big one because you're just can see both sides and you're just weighing it and you're like, I don't know what to do. All right, so indecision, people pleasing, approval seeking, because they care so much what others think, and so much of their sense of self is tied into being with other people, that they feel they need that in order to be okay. So lacking self-trust, sometimes even self-betrayal, right? Because if they feel they need that other person's approval, or they need the relationship with the other person to stay safe, or to, you know, to stay in their comfort zone, they will literally betray themselves and what they think or they know to be true, or what they need just to keep. It's a sacrifice they'll make to keep the relationship the way they feel that they need to keep it. Okay, they need to be liked at all costs. Kowtowing, right? So that's an interesting word, but it means to defer or give in to others, right? So it's like, oh, fine, what I want doesn't really matter. Let's just do what you want, because at the end of the day, it's not worth risking you hating me or like me losing the relationship. Being really easily swayed by others, lacking boundaries, and just letting other people always take the lead or do what they want when it's not working for you, because you're so needing that relationship to stay stable. Insincerity, this is an interesting one as well. So because it doesn't feel safe for Libra a lot of the time to speak their truth, if it's not going to be in agreement with the other, they can sometimes be insincere, to be nice or to be pleasant or to avoid rocking the boat, or risking or they feel that it's threatening to rock the boat or to jeopardize any relationships. Yeah, being fake nice, dimming to fit in, same thing. They just really want to belong. They want that approval. Gossip is interesting because they are very social and they are very aesthetic, and they are very much about wanting things to be nice and to fit in. If there's something that doesn't, they might, even though they are nice, they may judge that rather harshly or talk behind the back, like definitely not to the face. Because they avoid conflict at all costs. This is just not every Libra is like this, but this is just at the core a Libra archetype. A superficiality, again, which can tie into just being really aesthetically driven, right? So that's actually not bad or shallow at all to value beauty and aesthetic, but out of balance, there can be a superficiality thing. Libras can sometimes allow themselves to be doormats. They also can have a perfectionistic streak and be caught up in vanity as well because of that desperate need to be approved of and needing to be liked and accepted and in harmony. So those are the Libra keywords. You can just choose whichever ones jump out to you. If there's any in the shadow side, you may want to watch that and bring loving awareness to yourself so that you can steer clear of anything that doesn't honor you. And then you can lean into some of these sort of more empowering keywords here in the light, if there's any that you really want to try on and lean into. And then let's look at these Libra cues. I actually wasn't satisfied with these when I did them, but I'll read them off anyway. So I think it's the gist of them. I didn't perfect them. Maybe next year. All right. So for Libra season, some nice questions to ask ourselves. What are the most important relationships in my life? What makes a good relationship? How am I contributing in my relationships? How am I receiving in my relationships? Whose approval do I need and why? How do I handle conflict? How often do I betray myself to keep the peace? Do I stand up for myself when I feel wronged? Am I often able to find compromise with others? Where can I create more balance in my life? How can I bring more of my favorite art, aesthetics, and overall beauty into my life? And lastly, what does harmony feel like in my body? Okay, so those are just some questions. These are also on my Instagram page, and maybe I'll post them on my website too, if you want to use them to journal. But yeah, welcome fall season. So we're grounded now. We have more air. Libra energy happening. And so it's not just Mercury being retrograde. And we have actually on this day, the sun is Cazimi. It's conjoining Mercury, or Mercury is Cazimi. So when a planet conjoins the sun exactly within even just a few minutes, I don't tend to work that much with Cazimis. Planets that are next to the sun are considered generally afflicted. They're combust. You can't see them. They burned up in the rays of the sun. It's considered a part of the planetary journey where they go through the sun and they become purified and are reborn anew on the other side. But there's also a point where they are directly in the heart of the sun, exactly conjunct the sun, that it's considered Cazimi, which is actually beneficial. It's okay, now the sun is helping you do more mercurial things. So in this period of the Mercury retrograde, actually on this autumn ingress or Libra ingress, the first day of fall, if you have any mercurial endeavors that you want to do, you got to sign a contract, you have to do something mercurial. Today might be a decent day to, rock that, because many people consider the Mercury to be supported because it's exactly Cazimi or conjunct the sun. And that actually happens at 11:50 p.m. Which is Pacific, and then 2:50 a.m. on the 23rd Eastern time. And that's at 0 degrees and 14 arc minutes of Libra. So I never have it exact on this chart here. But yeah, so the Mercury Cazimi late at night, early in the morning, September 22nd to 23rd. Okay. Moving along, Friday, September 23rd. This is kind of an interesting day. So the first thing that happens is the moon moves into Virgo really early in the morning, 12:53 a.m. It's actually a very Virgoan day because we're actually going to have Mercury retrograde back into Libra, or back into Virgo as well. So we are entering our balsamic moon phase where the moon is getting smaller and smaller. It could be lower energy, but still kind of productive. With the moon in Virgo here and Mercury retrograde, still retrograde, but now back into Virgo, it's sign of exaltation. Mercury does extremely well in the sign of Virgo. It rules the sign of Virgo, and it is also considered exalted here. Mercury to do with everything to do with communications, Virgo very much about the details and how we're going to, materialize those in the physical world in a practical way that really works for us. So it's interesting because it is a little mixed, because once this happens, it's all being opposed by Neptune and Pisces, which blurs things. Like, it makes things there's still a foggy element of not being able to see exactly, or maybe it's not just being able to see, but it's not being able to control every detail or all the things exactly. Neptune does really cast a mist over things. And the way that Neptune does it is that, like, you don't even know that you don't know. So we don't want to get too excited, but nonetheless, Mercury does gain a lot of dignity just by going back into Virgo. It's like, its nature is to be communicating and doing stuff and be in the details. And so it's working in that sense. Okay. And yeah, this kind of harkens back to a lot of August when we had Mercury in Virgo and we were like direct before it went retrograde. So we may be kind of like reviewing some of those things that we were doing at that time. And so, yeah, we are still reviewing. We are still doing all the re's for Mercury retrograde. So now Saturday, September 24th, Moon square Mars. So the moon in Virgo squares Mars at 10:51 a.m. It's really brief, but it's a brief feasting. This is where you want to assess your boundaries. It's a good thing to consider given today's other transit, which is that Venus is opposing Neptune also on this Saturday, September 24th. And that happens exactly at 1:51 a.m. at 23 degrees and 50 minutes on Virgo Pisces. So the moon and Mercury retrograde are in Virgo, and they are in a sign-based square with Mars in opposition with Neptune. So it's just really not a day for clarity. But Venus in particular has beauty and love significations. And so when she squares Neptune, she's opposing Neptune, she's not getting the clarity, but she might not know that she doesn't know, right? This is the same aspect that we talked about Mercury just having. So these planets in the late degrees of Virgo are opposed by Neptune in the late degrees of Pisces. And so whatever it is that we're trying to like wrangle details in the physical world, there's some sort of sense of the great beyond, like we're never going to get it all together. We can't figure it all out. So this is still, and especially in matters of love or matters of the heart or anything Venusian to do with creativity as well, beauty, there could be like an idealization or like, Neptune can blur your vision. It can make you see, you can't see clearly. You might be sort of idealizing something or just kind of hoping something will work out. At its worst, it can actually be willful deception. You could actually be like deceived by another person. But I tend to think of it more, this is a very fleeting transit for Venus, but Mercury is still kind of in there. So, and the moon is in there now too. So this day in particular, there could be really like a sense of romanticizing something, but like we don't have the full picture and it's not really like fully something we can define or trust or lean on. So just knowing that. Okay. Sunday, September 25th, we have the moon entering Libra at 9:43 a.m. Pacific, and the moon becoming new in Libra at 2:54 p.m. and that's at 2 degrees and 48 minutes of Libra. Let me just scooch this forward just a little bit. There we go. Yeah, so the Libra new moon, this is ruled by Venus, who is in Virgo, and she's also trine Pluto today. So the ruler of this new moon is kind of in an empowering, sort of a self-empowering, grounded aspect today. That kind of perfects at 10:46 p.m. Pacific, like later in the night, but it's like certainly an aspect even for the few days before this. So there's sort of a sense of empowerment in a grounding way, but this Libra new moon is very much concerned with relationships, harmony, and balance, and also art. Like Libra really is the sign of the artist. It really is. It's so creative and wants everything to be beautiful. So we may have new beginnings, new moons, again, planting new seeds, new beginnings in the Libra house in our chart. But this new moon is also really opposing Jupiter in Aries, who's retrograde. So there's really like a sense of balancing the me and the we, and trying to kind of figure that out. Like an opposition is a hard aspect, but Jupiter is a nice planet. So with Jupiter, often it's like something is just like, okay, we need a little bit more over here in the Aries sector of our chart. Maybe we speak up and we're a little feisty, but maybe like it's a little overblown, or like we're figuring it out. But it's, it's easy for things to be a little bit more out of balance, but it's not too crazy because Jupiter is a nice planet. So I think we are just figuring things out in terms of balance between relationships on this day, and planting new seeds in the Libra part of our chart. And these new seeds are nice because the ruler of this new moon is empowered by Pluto, and it's grounded. So that's quite nice. What do you want to do with it? What new seeds do you want to plant in the Libra house of your chart? What house does that rule in your chart? Looking at that kind of new cycle there. Okay, Monday, September 26th, we have Mercury conjoining Venus at 10:59 a.m. at 26 degrees and 47 minutes of Virgo. Definitely still obscured by Neptune. This whole conjunction of Venus and Mercury is opposing Neptune over here in Pisces. So it's not super clear, but it could be really creative. Like bringing beauty and love and communications together could be very creative, especially with Neptune opposing it, because it could help you to idealize something or to dream something up. Just don't be expected to be too rooted in reality. All right. And then we actually have the Sun opposing Jupiter on the same day. So there are continued themes. Sun in Libra at 3 degrees Libra opposing Jupiter at 3 degrees of Aries. So Libra is about relationships and Aries is about the individual. So the we and the me, and there being sort of a balance that needs to be struck there. So that's a continued themes with this Libra new moon, and the moon is still in Libra on this day. And she's trining Mars in Gemini and Saturn in Aquarius. It's like a grand air trine. So there's a lot of ideas. Like I said, this would be a great day for writing and communications, especially if they are creative, keeping in mind Mercury is still retrograde. So it's nice if you're even, especially revisiting other former creative projects. Tuesday, September 27th is a productive day because we have Mercury, the planet of communication, trining Pluto, which is what Venus was just doing. Mars is trining Saturn, which is retrograde, and we're going to have that trine 3 times because Mars is going to go retrograde too. But this is like, it's so Mars trine Saturn, which is retrograde, is at 10:59 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday, September 27th. And that is at 19 degrees and 9 minutes of Gemini Aquarius. And then, so it's the first of 3 because we're going to have Mars go retrograde and trine Saturn again. And then when Mars goes direct, he will trine Saturn again. And that's going to take a long time. So this is the beginning of a process now of Mars wanting to plow forward and do something in that Gemini house in the chart, and like looking for support from Saturn in Aquarius. So looking for support from structures, pre-existing structures, or trying to build new structures, or systems, or working with authority figures. But because Saturn is retrograde and Mars is going to go retrograde, this is going to be a longer process. So whatever it is that you're trying to start in your Gemini house, expect that to just like start it, like do whatever you're going to do. You can't hold back the tide, but be really patient and know that it may take a while to lock down the support that you're looking for that, or to figure it all out, but that it really will come together over the next 7 months. September 29th, Thursday. This is a day where I got a lot of stuff written down. Okay, so Venus ingresses into her domicile of Libra at 12:49 a.m. And so this really amps up Libra season. So Venus rules Libra. And she is super empowered here in the sign of Libra to bring about everything that she wants to bring about. She is combust, the sun here, like she's also under the beam. So she's not in her maximum power, but it's still pretty good. It's certainly a leg up from her being in Virgo. So Venus, the artist, the lover, in the sign of relationships and beauty and art. It's pretty good. She is also largely out of the way of malefics. Like later in her cycle, she's going to have a day or something where she's a couple days where she's with Pluto and it's uncomfortable, but mostly she's like being supported by Saturn. She's being supported by Mars, and she's opposing Jupiter, but Jupiter is a nice planet. So this is pretty nice for Libra endeavors, and your Libra house in your chart is getting some blessings now that your Virgo house was enjoying. So whatever house Libra rules in your chart, you can look for some nice, for grace there. Friday, September 30th, hang in there. Mercury stations direct in 2 days, but it's opposite Neptune. So it's not going to be moving, and there's going to be some fogginess. It's going to take a little while for things to clear. And the facts may not get us just where we want to go, or all the details. We may need to depend on faith, which is very Neptunian, right? It's like the other realm that's like just beyond all the physical, material, real world, quote unquote, details. So faith, spirituality, art, just everything that's like a little bit beyond what we can grasp. And that may feel hard to balance these two things, because we can't just escape into that nebulous world. We still have to like cross our T's and dot our I's. So how can we bring balance to these two ways of being? And yeah, the facts may not get us where we want to go, and we may have to lean into something that's a little bit beyond that. And that's not always the easiest. So this entire fall period is really great for integration. Important growth is happening, but it just may not feel like it. And Saturn and Uranus, who have been squaring each other since, pretty much since Saturn moved into the sign of Aquarius in December of 2020. Yeah. 2021, why am I tripping? Anyway, it's been a few years. And that's really been reflecting this like social unrest, systems versus the rebels against the system. And that's on both sides of all sides of the political spectrum. We've been seeing a lot of that over the last couple of years. And there's through the fall and through the end of September, we're also having that aspect intensify, even though it's not going to become perfect again. It's just an extra layer that's in the background there that kind of ramps things up. So the fall really is October. October is going to feel, interesting as Mars begins to slow down. We're going to have an eclipse. We're going to have another eclipse in November. Mars is going to be retrograde around Halloween. It's just and be retrograde until like mid-January of 2023. So, this is a good month here in September to begin with this retrograde energy, with this Mercury retrograde energy, and be looking at what we want to review and like finish up before we start a really new phase in 2023, which will especially feel like a big tone shift, will be a big tone shift come March with 3 planets moving into brand new signs. So that is it for this month of September. My God, I have got to get simpler. This is such a long forecast. Going to talk about like Mars and Gemini and all these Virgo planets down. It's like me writing down every single aspect and then trying to cover them all. It's too much. For a monthly forecast, I really should be like truncating it and then doing dailies where I talk about the moon. But I'm figuring out as I'm going as well what's working for me as an astrologer and how many spoons I have. So thank you for being here if you're still here. I hope you enjoyed the timestamps. And if you want to join me to kind of get out of the super intellectual pieces of astrology and get more into the embodied kind of practices and connection, you can become a patron. The lowest tier will still include all of the full moon journeys and the new moon chit chats and everything. And the lowest tier is $8 a month. And I'm giving you a lot. I'm giving a lot. I have some of my older meditations available for digital download as well, and pretty much just anything that I have the spoons to do. But one of the things that I love to do with astrology, once I've combed through all these like Virgoan details, is now I've got them all down and I can let them go and relax, and I can go into spiritual practice, prayer, meditation, embodiment. And actually, I'm still working on integrating these two sides of myself because I can be so type A, as you can see. If you work with me in meditation, it's so different. It's so different. I like to get all this type A shit like set up so that I know it, and then I can, release it and just move into something higher. So yeah, if you're curious about what that's like, there are some free meditations that I got on Insight Timer, which is a great meditation app, and also on YouTube. They're all on my website as well as sacredstarlight.com. And you can see sort of what those meditation journeys are like. I put a lot of energy healing in various modalities that I've studied, that I combine theta healing, pranic healing, Reiki, breath work, all of these things, and then just magic and ritual. All of these things come into these ceremonies, which we can do virtually. And the energy work does travel across time and space. So that's really cool too. So feel free to check those free resources out. And if they resonate with you, you can join me on Patreon. And I'm sending everyone blessings and love for a perfect September, and for good September surfing, to surf this energy however you want to, however you can. And just reminding us all, and myself right now, to invite cosmic help whenever we need it. And sometimes that's just shouting a prayer from, your rooftop, or calling a friend, So I think that's it. All right. Thank you all so much. All my love.